Welcome to the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, powered by R Squared Global.
Welcome to another edition of the Global Energy Leaders Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Ray, and today on episode 44, we kind of get outside of our norm a little bit, and we talk about water conservation. And the reason we do this is because, well, Forbes determined that these gentlemen deserve to be under the Forbes 30 Under 30 energy list. And as you know, we have brought on a lot of folks from that list. And so we reached out to these guys and they said, hey, we want to come on. And we talked about it. And they said, well, we're under that spectrum of the Forbes 30 Under 30 for energy, but we're not exactly related to energy. And as we talked, it became apparent to me that, as energy professionals, the cost of water actually affects the cost of energy. And so being concerned or thinking about water conservation is one of the ways that energy professionals can bring down the cost of energy. And so I wanted to bring them on, and they work at Flow Labs. It's Jimit Shah and Nishant Garg. And we talk about water conservation and look at it from a lot of different perspectives. Check them out at flowlabs.com. We'll link to all the stuff in the show notes. So here's my conversation with the fellows from Flow Labs. Well, we continue our list of 30 under 30 members, and so we have on two today. Gentlemen, how is it going?
Going well, Ryan. Thanks for having us.
So kind of give me a background on, how you got on the energy list and what came about that. What was the process like? We've asked this several times, and I always enjoy hearing the answers.
Yeah, sure. So Nishant and I, a little background on us. We started the company about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago now. And our goal is to really help homeowners and commercial building managers, in general, any property that uses water, that's almost every property, to optimize their water usage and reduce wastage. And that's kind of the goal that we're driving toward. We started working on this water monitoring space specifically with this current device that we've been working on over the past year or so. And during our work, while we encountered meeting with a bunch of different folks in the water space, bouncing ideas, bouncing different ways of solving these problems. And that's when one of our buddies who's solving another problem within the water space mentioned to us about Forbes 30 Under 30 and how he's connected with the folks over at Forbes. And that's how we got an interview. At the same time, Nishant and I were sort of pursuing getting on the list by just getting in front of the right folks. So that was kind of the beginning of how we got involved with the Forbes 30 Under 30. Nishant might have a deeper perspective on this.
No, that was the intro, and then the process from there on was, answering questions about what's driving us and why are we in this space and what's the company all about. From there, we, actually just kind of woke up one day to a text that said, "Hey, congrats," from one of our friends that saw us in the article before we even knew about it. So, yeah, it was great news to wake up to in the morning.
I bet that sounds exciting, and congratulations again. So, the obvious question for the listener right now is okay, hey, this is an energy show, and we're talking about water conservation. That doesn't seem to be a direct correlation, but I would actually argue that, obviously you guys aren't into, hydropower, but water conservation as it pertains to energy is actually connected because water is such a part of the energy process. And sometimes, just as energy professionals, we kind of get isolated in our bubble, and we don't really realize that energy touches everything that we do, just about, okay? Everything that we do. So water prices, and if water is being wasted and water becomes in higher demand, that will actually affect energy prices. And so for me, it kind of makes a natural connection if you think kind of outside the box. Is that kind of how you guys see it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's this whole science behind the water energy nexus, right? That is kind of in its infancy, if you may. At the end of the day, there's a lot of data that needs to be looked at and evaluated to understand how closely water and energy are tied. But just to kind of give you an idea, when everyone uses water, we all use a certain amount of energy indirectly by using the water that we do. There's a term called the embedded energy of water, energy intensity of water, that's used to recognize how much energy is used to transport water from source to consumption. So there's research going on in bunch of different places, primarily out of UC Davis. There's a water energy nexus center that does a lot of research on this space. And one of the research I thought was very intriguing was that Professor Dr. Frank Loge, he talks about how water conservation over, let's say, a period of 10 to 12 years can actually bring more energy conservation in general compared to energy saving rebates or energy saving programs that a lot of the energy utilities will put out. I thought that was a fascinating observation because when we look at water conservation, we don't really think of the snowball effect that it has on other parts of the economy in general. And I feel like these researches is what is going to get us to getting a much clearer idea. So yeah, to your point, absolutely, there's a lot of synergy between water and energy.
Yeah, just to add a couple items, as we use more water, that puts more onus on utility companies. There's energy expended in pumping, conveyance, treatment of water, but then even just in our own homes, the more we run our fixtures, dishwasher, the heating of water in the house, those are very tangible ways for people to make a connection that, as I use less water, I don't have to heat as much water. I don't have to, have the water treatment plant process as much water. And those all, take significant amounts of energy.
Okay, so let me ask you about that. You brought up the local consumer, and I remember one time I was at a discussion, and the discussion was about a water aquifer that was shrinking. And they said, okay, as the aquifer shrinks, salt water mixes in on the fringes of the aquifer, and you can't reclaim that area. And so they went through all these numbers about how the aquifer's shrinking and all this stuff, and they said, okay, the local paper mill is using X amount of gallons of water a day, whatever it was. And the rest of the area is using Y. Well, Y was less than X. And so I remember sitting there thinking, well, okay, you have us here, but it's the big paper mill, in this case, that's using more water than, even if we all stopped, it wouldn't matter. It was draining the aquifer at a higher rate than the average consumer. And I think for a lot of average consumers, they may sit back and look at it going, okay, well, yeah, I could take a shorter shower, but is that actually going to do anything?
That's a fair question. I think the equivalent of that question, I kind of think of when we go and during election time, right? When someone says, hey, is my one vote actually going to matter? I kind of equate that similarly. One shower, there's math, we can do here, but
don't do the math for us. Just give us you'll lose me pretty quick, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I don't want to do the math, but it's more about the idea that at the end of the day, every home consumes X amount of water, and just reducing it by 10-20%, multiply that by over 300 million homes in this country. Now you've got billions and billions of gallons of water that is conserved, and hence that amount of energy that's also conserved at the end of the day.
Yeah, if you look at that analogy with the paper mill, agriculture does consume a significant amount of water, much more than we use domestically and indoors in the U.S., especially in California. But there is a significant amount of innovation going around, water conservation and better practices in agriculture. And we felt that also domestic water use was just a place that was significantly being overlooked. There's a lot of energy innovation going on to enable people to understand their energy habits and how to optimize those. And we felt that, domestic water usage was just being overlooked.
Okay, so you mentioned agriculture there. That's one of the questions that I know that some HOAs here in Texas and other places, you can only water your grass during a drought for so many minutes a day or whatever it is, and you kind of look at that and you go, agriculture, well, they're watering these huge crop fields. Obviously, it's not a 1-to-1. Okay, so if you can water your grass for 4 minutes a day or whatever it is, you can't say, well, to the farmer you can only water 20 minutes a day. But how should the average person look at that and say, okay, well, if I'm going to be a conservationist and I want to make sure I am protecting this precious asset that's water, how do I talk about it in a way when I'm dealing with people who may be in agriculture to kind of get them on board and to get them thinking properly about it?
That's a good question. You got us thinking. One thought I had is, if you as a consumer are familiar with kind of the approaches that you take to conservation, such as buying a Flow Labs device and putting it on your home and understanding your water usage, it's more of a discussion and kind of question that you could pose to them that, hey, I do this in my home. Does technology like this exist in your environment? If you're not aware of specific technologies or techniques, there are certain pieces of hardware, there's techniques like drip irrigation, It can be more of a mindset thing of just asking them if they've even thought about it. We found that homeowners and consumers, business owners, sometimes, they don't think about it. Sometimes it is taken for granted. So just opening the doors for a discussion and getting them to think and changing that mindset is kind of the first step.
Yeah, I'd say I think Nishant used a good word, mindset. And the question that comes to my mind is, where does water conservation fit in your priority, in your list of priorities? Understanding that and just posing that as a question can start the person to think of, okay, why is this important? What are the measures that can be taken? I think these little conversations can go pretty far at the end of the day.
No, absolutely. Conversations is key because, we don't know what we don't know and we don't think about what we don't think about, and it sounds kind of simplistic, but, until someone says something, you may go, oh yeah, I never really considered that. Okay. So let's go back to the home front here. So me as a homeowner, I am concerned about water conservation. What are some practical things to think about? Not necessarily, hey, go buy this tool or this filter or whatever, but just, as you mentioned, how do we think about it properly to kind of get the ball rolling down the hill?
I think the first question is to so when we speak about flow labs or just water in general with people, the first question we tend to ask is, do you know how much you pay for your water bill? And the typical answer is no. It's so easy for someone to just pay without recognizing. The second question is, do you know where the water goes inside your house or your property? And that's a pretty much a strong no. So I think that's where kind of the fundamental conversation is. Do we really know how we're using water? I mean, water. If we all consider and believe truly that water is one of the most precious resources for humans, how is it that we've come to a point where no one even knows where it's being used, and we just blindly use it? So I think the fundamental question of data. Where is water being used? What is happening with my water today? Am I wasting it? Am I, conserving it? I think without having the data, there isn't any way to take concrete step. And that's what sort of our thesis is at Flow Labs.
Okay, so we step back, we take that, and we say one of the things that may pop up when you start talking about where's the water going is, do I have leaks? And I think that leaks are something that we probably don't think about, whether it's a small faucet dripping or there's a pipe leak, a small leak inside the yard. What do you guys think about leaks? How big of a problem are they in the domestic side of the business? And what are ways that people could look to identify them and to mitigate them?
So one of the most objective ways to answer that is that the EPA quantifies that 14% of domestic water usage goes to leaks. That doesn't mean that every home is leaking about 14% of their water bill, but, average out among all U.S. homes, about 14% goes straight to leaks. So right
hold on. Let me just set that, make sure I heard it right. 14% of all domestics, so we're talking about homeowners, normal folks, 14% is from leaks. Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah. So
that's
on
a staggering
average,
number. Yeah, that's
a city is paying $100,000 per day in water bills. About 14,000 of that is probably going toward leaks.
Wow.
So that just is a great way for people to put it in perspective that this is something pretty common, and you might not know it, but there's so many different sources of leaks that can be going unnoticed.
And water leaks, there's two parts to water leaks. One is what Nishant's mentioning, the amount of water lost. The other part to water leaks is damages, which it's another thing that we don't consider too much as a homeowner's insurance perspective. When you look at damages from an insurance standpoint, that's one of the number one claims in terms of frequency of claims for insurance companies. And then from an intensity, the amount of money per claim perspective, it's anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 per house per year. So on an average, insurance companies spend about $5 billion every year in water damage claims from property leaks, which is a significant amount, right? So leaks can be pretty disastrous in multiple ways.
Okay, so I know you guys at Flow Labs have a lot of stuff to offer to kind of help with this, but before we get there, I want to talk about, the Internet of Things, big data, kind of those big buzzwords that are out there right now, and how that could help mitigate some of these costs that we're looking at, with 14% of domestic loss of water from leaks, and that's not counting just waste from not thinking about how long your shower is going or something like that. So where will all of that play into water conservation in the long run?
Yeah, certainly IoT and big data, it's advanced by orders of magnitude over the last several years, which is, why we feel this is the right time to build technology like we're building. If you look at simple things like the phones that we all use every day, it empowers us to be connected and view the data that we're creating in real time. So now you can just click an app, open it, and see where consumption has happened. If you look at companies like Nest, that's done that with HVAC, you don't even have to be proactive about it. People can send you a text message or an email that you can be reactive to the device thinking for you and telling you when you need to pay attention to your usage. So that's just from an accessibility standpoint. And then from the standpoint of, IoT, there's so many different technologies that are enabling companies like Flow Labs to service customers better. Technologies like sub-gigahertz, Cat-M from large cellular carriers, they just allow us to get our data up to the cloud in a very easy way that makes it sustainable and operationally usable to deploy a device like this. And then hardware prototyping costs and development costs have decreased significantly, which allow us to make a device that's affordable for consumers. So, 10 years ago, a company like us wouldn't really be able to develop a product like this that would, one, be affordable, but also usable. And, just the advances in the industry have enabled us to make something that, can serve a purpose that we want it to.
Okay, and we've kind of beat around the bush here, but I want to talk about Flow Labs. How was the company founded, and what all services and products do you guys offer today?
Yeah, so the company was founded in late 2014. We got started in a bit of a different space in water, but more of a health and wellness space. During that time, we were in California in drought, and we saw a pretty big need for technologies to, like I mentioned earlier, to generate data to start understanding where and how water was being used. Because when you look at the buildings today and homes today, there's only one water meter that sits outside the building, and it does not give you any significant data than just enough to make you pay for the water usage. So we set out to build a product that can help change the way water metering happens, make it easy to install, affordable, and a way to extract data wirelessly and send it to the cloud and give you insights. So that all has been in evolution over the past 2 years.
Yeah, we want people to look at us as the water people, the water company. Of course, we've got our first device, Flow Ultra, quick plug, that's out in production now. So it helps you monitor your water usage in real time. But we're building an ecosystem of sensors that can not just monitor flow rates of your pipes, of water going through your pipes, but also just help you at a high level understand the health of your water usage within a building, whether it's going through a pipe or other places in the building. So that's really what we're set out to do. And we're working with not just homeowners, but also small business owners looking to long-term work with utility companies. So yeah, we're the water guys, not just the, cool product flow meter guys.
I've heard of a lot of people call themselves a lot of things, but the water guys, I think, is a new one for me. So hey, a good branding strategy though. I like it. So where can people find you, and anything else that you'd like to plug or promote that we didn't get to today?
Yeah, we are online at flowlabs.com. We're based here out of California in a town called Sunnyvale. If someone's around, we'd love to show them our office, our products. And you can also reach us via email at sales, SALES, at flowlabs, FLOWLABS.com. Or you can call us at 321-460-2128.
Yeah, if you're interested in the product or just want to learn about, how we're looking at the space or just have questions, feel free to contact us.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We will link to that all of that in the show notes where the listeners can go to find all your information. at globalenergymedia.com, and you can find the show notes there. And we will put everything for Flow Labs and you guys in your Forbes 30 under 30 article there as well. Congratulations on that and continued success at Flow Labs. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Really enjoyed that discussion there. A lot of information. If you're more interested in water conservation, and we need to think more about water conservation as energy professionals and figure out, okay, how can we use water? How can we reduce water's waste? Obviously, if we're wasting as much as they talk about, well, we want to reduce that, and that's just being good stewards with what we have. So, hope you enjoyed the show. Would love to hear your feedback at globalenergymedia.com/contact, and I will read your email if you send one. I read them all. The Global Energy Leaders Podcast is produced by Michael Sims and Chris Prine. Chris Prine also serves as editor for the Global Energy Leaders Podcast. Until next time, keep climbing.
Thanks for listening to the Global Energy Leaders Podcast, powered by R Squared Global.